Jen has ordered a decadent seafood tower, king crab legs, lobster tails, and a waterfall of caviar. Pricey? You bet. But Jen worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy and planned for splurges like these. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Ooh, champagne. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Start today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risk. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisory Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. OMG, those shrimps are really jumbo.
What if buying a new appliance felt like a win for your home and your wallet? Save up to 50% plus up to an extra $600 on select major appliances at the Best Buy Appliances Labor Day sale. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Ah, Smart Water. Pure, crisp taste.
That's really good water.
It's the kind of water that says, I have my life together.
I do feel more sophisticated.
Smart Water. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
This is an ad.
I hate it!
An ad for crisp, refreshing Angry Orchard hard cider.
That is refreshing.
An ad that interrupted your podcast.
I hate being interrupted!
To remind you to stop being angry at me and crack open an Angry Orchard.
That's a good idea.
Don't get angry. Get Orchard. Angry Orchard Cider Company, LLC. AngryOrchard.com. Please drink responsibly. Angry Orchard is a hard cider with other natural flavors.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
Well, it wasn't pretty, but the Eagles managed to walk out somehow with the W from the season opener in what is probably one of the more bizarre opening games I've ever watched in NFL history. We're here to break it all down for you guys. Hopefully you guys have found us. We had some stream issues, I think, because the rain delay or the weather delay pushed the stream so far later, so had to create a new stream. It's been a mess, but we're excited to break this game down with you guys, even if it means I might not go to bed until it's time to get up tomorrow. I'm your host, Shane Half. Give me a follow on Twitter at Shane Half NFL. Also joined by Eric. Give him a follow on Twitter at Eagles X's and O's. Eric, the Eagles walk out with a 24-20 victory, and we talked just briefly before I hit go live. I don't even know if we can take anything away from this game.
I'll start out by saying a kind of notorious Jalen Hurts quote, which is, take a deuce. You don't sit there and look at it. You flush it and move on. And I hope that's what the Eagles do. I hope the fans can do that as well. I mean, there was a lot of the stuff we saw last year in the Green Bay game in Brazil, the sloppiness, carryover, or not carryover, but that's just part of the nature of when you have teams that don't play all preseason and you got a bunch of injuries and your best player on defense gets thrown out and then you have a lightning delay. You can't read too much into that. Now, there's a lot of I've written down a ton of notes, so there's a lot of things that I do want to talk about, but I don't want to say I'm hitting the panic button and it's a big disaster.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, weird start to the game. You lose Ben Van Sumeren on the opening kickoff. Did they ever announce what that was, by the way? I never saw, but it looked
I don't know. But they immediately ruled him out, which tells me it's probably significant. And he's going, what the F on the field, so it's probably not good.
Yeah, and your heart goes out to him, who ended his season last year just as he was carving out a role in the offense for himself, ends the season with an injury. And then on the opening snap of the game, I mean, not even a snap, I guess, on the opening kickoff, he gets injured again. Hopefully not seriously, but it did look that way. So Hopefully Ben Van Sumeren's okay. Then you get Jalen Carter ejected from the game before the first snap, and it makes it really hard to evaluate things defensively. I mean, like, I feel like I can pretty definitively say Adoree Jackson stinks, but we already kind of knew that. But you look at, it makes his job harder when the pass rush isn't getting there, and it makes the pass rush significantly less effective when teams aren't having to game plan around Jalen Carter. And so on one hand, it feels like it's hard to take much away from the defense. And then on the flip side, you look at the offense, which started so strong, scored points on its first 4 possessions, and then just nothing after that. But it coincides with the rain delay and Landon Dickerson getting banged up. And Jordan Mailata also got banged up on that field goal drive before the weather delay. And so, there's a lot of weirdness going on. I put out on Twitter when there was like 5 minutes left that I'm not sure you're going to be able to take anything definitive away from this game, but that's easier to handle when you walk out with a W. So I'm glad the Eagles were able to do that. So let's dive into it, Eric. Let's talk first. Let's start off on the defensive side of the ball. We normally start offense first, but I feel like a lot of the discussion in this game is going to be about the defense. And, I mean, Adoree Jackson, he's just bad, right? He can't be your CB.
And, I'm not going to get up here and ever try to claim I know more than the coaches. They just see these guys way more than we ever do. And obviously there's a reason that they wanted to put him out there. And they even brought him back in after that first half. So clearly they don't think Bennett is ready. Now, from what I could see on the broadcast, I thought he played much tighter coverage. He had a ticky-tack foul and then gave up that slant when the Cowboys were going to try to spike it before the half. But you didn't really get an opportunity to see what he was able to do. You just got to think they're trying to get him up to speed. He may not know the defense. If he just doesn't know the defense, it doesn't matter if he's much better than Adoree. He's not going to put him out there. Obviously, the ship has sailed on Keeley, so they didn't have any other options. And there is no way that they can continue long term with that as the CB2. I don't think you can be a serious contender with that out there.
Yeah. Maybe they should call the Vikings and see if they want to trade Isaiah Rodgers, a guy that never should have been let out of the building to begin with. But that's a whole other issue that we did talk about some in the offseason. But, it's going to be tough. And you hope that Jacorian Bennett comes along. I mean, we saw last year the impact that Cooper DeJean had on the defense inserted after the bye week. And I'm not saying that Jacorian Bennett will have that same type of impact, but I am saying that the Fangio defensive scheme is kind of a bear, and so it does take a little bit to get up to speed. So I'm still hopeful, and there's a lot of new starters on the defense, and some of them I thought looked really good, and we'll get into that. But CB2 was just as much of a train wreck as we thought it was going to be in the postseason, or in the preseason, and definitely not aided by the pass rush. But let's talk about that pass rush. It felt like for large swaths of the game early on, Dak Prescott just had all day to throw the football. And yeah, I feel like it did get a little better, and especially there late, but then you get into the whole, everything was different after the rain delay, and both offenses struggled. But at the end of the day, Dak Prescott ends up with a 2.9 second time to throw and was only pressured on 9 of his 35 dropbacks. So that's obviously not good enough. Did you see that something different from the Eagles after that weather delay, or do you think it was just offenses getting a little bit more stale?
No, in terms of the pass rush?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like they ran a few more, stunts. They got Nolan Smith coming up on that big stop where he kind of looped inside. They did bring a few pressures there at the end, and, on that 4th and 3, they brought Zach Bond, and he kind of got cut. But I saw some people kind of saying Ojomo had a disappointing game, and of course we're going to go back and watch the film. What it did look like to me is either you're going against potentially the best guard in all of football in Tyler Smith. Tyler Booker looks like a real player. The Cowboys, I mean, generally if you're taking a guard that high in the draft, I'm going to criticize you. But if they're a Pro Bowl level right out of the gates. Like, you can't criticize that. He looks really good. And he was getting doubled constantly. And I don't expect him to ever beat doubles. That's where it's like, it's a compounding effect with Carter going out, where not only do you lose what he's able to bring, but it makes everyone else worse. And the pass rush was disappointing. I was encouraged by Jordan Davis. I thought the edges were really lackluster. That's not a very good tackle pair from the Cowboys. Terrence Steele is specifically a bad pass blocker, and I don't think that they were able to attack him very well. Yeah, I thought Fangio was a little bit too conservative. Like, the corners playing way off like they were in the early last year, and then you just have the 4-man rush. You're not even like threatening anything. The Cowboys are easily able to communicate all their assignments. You don't have the firepower with Carter out, and then you got nothing. Like, I would have liked to see maybe a little bit quicker adjustment. And people will point to the second half and say they shut him out. Fangio's a genius. And they definitely made adjustments that helped. But the Cowboys really like shot themselves in the foot over and over again in the second half. So I think there's going to be a skewed narrative a little bit about how that really transpired. But that's where the film will really speak.
Yeah, I mean, CeeDee Lamb dropped 2 passes on the last drive, both of which...
I mean, you could argue that last one, like that. Yeah, I know that dive and catch would have been served, but it touched his hands. So that's like potentially 3 drops.
Yeah, and I mean, he's going to make those catches 9 times out of 10. So, the Eagles catch a break there. The Cowboys catch some breaks, and the Eagles' total inability to catch Dak Prescott passes that hit him in the hands. So maybe it balances out at the end. But I was also really surprised that Azeez Ojulari and Ty Robinson were both inactive for this game. I thought that those guys were above Josh Uche and Byron Young. And so that kind of surprised me a little bit. I saw a comment here asking about the pressures. Right now, PFF charting has Jalix Hunt and Josh Uche each with 3 pressures, Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis with 2, and then Patrick Johnson and Zach Bond with 1 each. So you can take that for what it's worth, which I've spoken about PFF before is maybe not a lot, but there you go. On the aggressiveness thing, I was just kind of saying at halftime, like, if you can't get stopped, if you can't get your defense off the field from 1st and 10, eventually you just got to start dialing up pressure and try to get to 2nd and 22, and then see if you can get off the field from there. And I mean, who cares if you give up a 30 or a 40-yard explosive play, because they're just moving the ball at will anyways. But I don't know if that's entirely fair to the Eagles defense, because they did have the Cowboys in holes a couple of times. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell had a defensive pass interference where he kind of bailed them out of I think it was a 2nd and 22. They had another penalty that bailed them out of a bad down and distance. And so there were some things like that. The Eagles, it was sloppy, but at the end of the day, the only real thing I think I want to take away from this game is that some of the rookies looked really good. I thought Jihad Campbell played pretty well. He had a couple really good reps in coverage. He also had a couple bad reps in run defense. That one, the big run that Miles Sanders had. Now, the bigger issue was that Adoree Jackson pancaked himself, and he would have been there to make the tackle. But the secondary issue is that Jihad Campbell was walked down on the line and caught a pulling guard and got kind of washed out of the play. So, and that's something you're going to have to live with when you walk a linebacker up to the edge and you get a guard pulling at him. So that's going to happen at times. But I thought Campbell looked really good. I thought Makuba had a couple of good plays. And of course, Zach Bond, I thought looked really good as well. And so, there's some guys in the center of the defense that you felt good about their performances. And I know a topic in our Discord during the game, during the weather delay, I was kind of chatting with some of the guys in there, and they were asking about the run defense and asking if that was kind of a Nolan Smith, or not Nolan Smith, and Nakobe Dean being gone was making a big impact there. I said, I really just think it's more Carter. Like, Carter being out, I know, Jordan Davis gets the press as the run guy, and I didn't think he was great against the run in this game, which is something I spoke about on our show with BLG, mine and Johnny's show with BLG, that I was concerned about. I was concerned that his dropping weight would negatively impact him as a run defender while not adding much as a pass rusher. Now, he did have some good, he had 2 pressures that honestly both should have been sacks. And so that part of it might look foolish. But I think a big part of it was Jalen Carter gone and potential questions about Jordan Davis as a run defender anymore. So what were your thoughts on the run defense and other guys that you just noticed in a good or a bad way defensively?
I totally agree. And it's going to be something I'm monitoring. I don't need Jordan Davis to be a pass rusher. And I'm on the record talking about this. They've got guys. Now, you can both believe that Fangio, after Carter got kicked out of the game, he was like, dang, I wish I dressed Ty Robinson. But
yeah,
I thought Davis got displaced several times. Not stuff that I really saw last year when he was playing at 360. His pass rush looked better, but I don't want that trade-off. I'd rather just have Ojomo and Carter out there throwing Ty Robinson occasionally, and then you have Davis out there just on early downs. But him and Ojomo were kind of just getting completely pushed back in the run game, and you have a lackluster running backs pushing the pile for 7-9 yards when it should have been 2-3 yard gains. That is concerning. So, I don't know to what extent it's that just resolves itself with Carter, but I wouldn't be upset if Davis went out for some fast food after the game.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had Moro Ojomo and Jordan Davis playing 55 and 53 snaps respectively on their bingo cards. And it's just that cascading effect of the whole Jalen Carter thing. What did you think about Campbell and Makuba in this one?
Yeah, it's really hard to evaluate safety play until you watch the film. So I'll probably just plead the fifth for now. But I thought Campbell looked solid. There was definitely plays where he got washed in the run game, sometimes not quite reading it quickly. And he was actually kind of sealed off on that Miles Sanders run. Yeah. But that's what we expected. We knew his block destruction was a work in progress. He's a tall, lean athlete. So that's never if you have behemoths working up to him free, that's never going to be a winning battle. So, and that's part of the territory, but the coverage looked really good. And I'm going to go look back at that pass breakup he had, because it looked like he was keying on the running back, saw the guy stayed in, was looking for work, saw that seam route, picked him up, ran perfectly with him, read the hands, and deflected the pass without even looking back. This is an unbelievable play for a rookie. Bond coming in a full sprint, pumped up because he knows how good of a play it was. You could just tell. He's this is what I've been wanting out of you, because he's been grooming him. So on that specific play, they motioned into a 4 strong, and they switch release the tight ends. And you can't see the whole thing. I rewatched the broadcast portion a couple times, but it seems like a really heads-up play from him to recognize that switch release, and he and Bond coordinate that perfectly, and he's able to run that route up the seam. So I was really impressed with that one live, based off what I think happened on the back end, but I really need to see that all 22 angle. Yeah, that was a great play. Bond was amazing. And it really goes to show you, Carter is the guy, because Bond is all over the field, and they're still, walking up and down the field on the Eagles defense. He couldn't do it all by himself. But then, you put in Carter, and the whole thing changes. So, I do think the Cowboys offense looks pretty good. I did not expect their offensive line to look that good. Now, obviously, it helps when you're playing a team without their best defensive lineman. Dak looked really sharp. One of the things that was baffling to me is that there wasn't more overt double teams on CeeDee Lamb. They were just having him, Adoree, him, ISO on the outside, 8 or 9 yards of space at the snap on 3rd and short. And it's they're running a slant. I don't understand. Why are they okay with giving that up? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It felt like they were putting Quinyon Mitchell on George Pickens a lot early in the game. which hypothetically, like, so there's an argument to be made for a team has a, top 5 to 10 receiver in the NFL and then another good option, and you have a lockdown corner. There's an argument to be made, like, let's lock down their number 2 and push all the help to number 1. But that wasn't happening. Like, it just continued to be Adoree Jackson playing 8 yards off with nobody else in the vicinity. So I'm not really sure what the plan was there. I'd be interested to hear Vic talk about what the plan was, why they used the corners the way that they did, and of course to see it a little more zoomed out tomorrow when we get the coach's film. But that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, I can see why you would have Quinion on Pickens, but the rest of it, how you would build it around CD, to me, if you do that, you're pretty much devoting 2 sets of eyes to him every play, and that just didn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, the chances of that working are so low, and it's the exact same thing we saw in the preseason. Like, I was literally like, wait, he's playing way too far off. He's going to easily give up passes underneath, and then you just pray he makes the tackle. But he was giving up passes of all depths. He can't play. But I actually want to analyze it a little bit closer. He had that started off with that terrible crosser that he gave up. Then he had a really bad tackle in space when he was coming up from playing off. He actually did that twice. He gave up, like you said, he took himself out of the play on the Miles Sanders huge run. On the last drive, he gave up a play. I don't even know why he was still in the game at that point. He had one play where they ran I think it was like an 8 or 10 yard hitch with CD, and he came up and batted the ball in the air. That was like the one play he made the entire game.
And then he got hurt. He came off the field there and was out for a little while.
So, yeah.
This was an issue. I mean, you mentioned last year that they did this early, and I actually charted out at the bye week last year. I was just searching for the tweet. I knew I had one about the cushion the Eagles were giving up to opposing wide receivers compared to how the rest of the league treated those same receivers when they played them. And on average, through the first 4 weeks of the season, the Eagles were giving up 19.3% more cushion pre-snap to opposing receivers than the rest of the NFL. And ironically, the one guy they didn't do that to was Rashid Shaheed, who they blanked when they played the Saints and was otherwise averaging 85 yards a game at that point in the season. And so this was a thing last year early in the season that corrected. I would assume it corrects this year, but I would love to know, like, philosophically why. And I love Vic and trust him with the defense, but I would love to know why, because it's a pattern at this point, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And every time they play up, they play way better. Like, It makes no sense. Okay, let's try to steel man an argument for him to say he's actually playing 4D chess here. Let's say they want to get this number on paper, so when teams are going to game plan against them, they say, this is the cushion. These are the type of stuff we can do. Then when you get into the higher stakes games, all of a sudden they're playing up. I don't know if that's true. That sounds like a huge conspiracy. It seems obvious, like Fangio knows better than all of us. There must be some reason behind it. But then last year, after they started playing up closer, I'd be curious if you had a stat on what their cushion was like after the bye last week, if that
I
changed.
did not. I don't have that, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I would be willing to bet a lot of money that they play much better when the cushion is not as deep. And then when they brought Bennett in, he was like playing 4 or 5 yards off and was like right in the guy's grill. Yeah. I don't even know if that pass interference was like an egregious pass interference. So my guess is they're just trying to make sure he knows the defense. And I guarantee, I'm going to plant my flag right now, there's not going to be Adoree Jackson on the field next week against the Chiefs.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not. So, all right. And hopefully Jalen Carter will be on the field as well. Hopefully we can get him for at least a snap next week.
Little tidbit on that. There's never been a player suspended for spitting in the history of the NFL. So unless
Yeah.
they're setting a new precedent with their code of conduct stuff this year, which by the way makes no sense. Everyone wants celebrations. Everyone wants like non-egregious taunting. Why are they trying to take that out of the game? It's a business. You get fans to pay money so you can sell TV deals, and they all want that. Why are they trying to referee that out of the game? It makes no sense.
Don't worry, they'll stop about week 4. That's when every point of emphasis ever dies. So
yeah, it's true. They actually, and I forget the exact stat. I think it's something in the order of 30% more of those type of unsportsmanlike flags are called in primetime nationally televised games. And that's from a guy who does charting of NFL referee stats.
Alante says, jokes on us. We'll be seeing Jackson for at least 2 more weeks. I will be seeing him for at least 2 more weeks, just in my nightmares, whether he's on the field or not. So anything else you want to shout out on the defense, and then we can flip it over to the offense? Because we got a lot of comments about Kevin Patullo and I will maybe say his name correctly twice this season.
I thought
about him in the offense.
I thought Blankenship and DeJean played really well. Once again, safeties you can't say definitively until you watch the film, but from what I saw, that they were in really good position. Made that catch, the CeeDee Lamb stuff, really tough on him. And why did the Cowboys put him in the slot with the game on the line when they're absolutely roasting on the outside? And it's 4th and 3 and Dak is throwing a fade. Like, that was the stupidest decision ever.
Oh, see, I actually thought that was a decent call, because I think they recognized the Eagles were going to send pressure and knew they would have their one-on-ones, so they motioned him into the slot to run the slot fade, which, granted, it is 4th and 3, but that kills man coverage with no help over the top. But
I hear you, but it's the matchup.
Yeah.
They literally, if they wanted to, they could have just motioned CeeDee over to wherever Adoree is and got that for free.
Just find number 8.
4th and 3, he would have been playing 10 yards off. And then you just, toss it over to him and you got a first down.
Yeah. I had a comment from J-Rock here about the unnecessary roughness on Reed Blankenship. That one's tough because that's a very legitimate flag in the way the NFL is officiated now, in the one in the end zone. But there's also just like nothing he could do. Like, his options are pull up and give up the touchdown or try to make a play on the ball, and there's a 98% chance the receiver going to the ground is going to get hit in the head and you're going to get flagged. And so it's a no-win situation for the defense, and I hate that. I both hate that that's a penalty and appreciate that they try to officiate headhunting out of the game. And I wish there was a line in between where it's like, okay, there's no other play to be made there. Unfortunately, that's just not the world we live in. So tough break on that one for Blankenship, but I don't fault him for the play at all. I thought he did what he needed to do without headhunting, and it's still going to be a flag almost every time.
The thing that concerns me a little bit is, like, you're getting them into 3rd and 10 plus repeatedly, and you're not feeling that confident that they're going to make the stop. Whether they had multiple penalties, I believe, on 3rd and long, they gave up like 2 of them, and then they also got away with one because they had drops. Like, they had multiple drops on 3rd and long that they could have converted. So it was something I hated last year, that especially early in the season, the Eagles had some really weak 3rd and long defense. They got a lot better as the year went on, but I just like to see them mix it up a little bit more on 3rd and long. It just seems like they're never blitzing, and they're still calling some like vanilla coverages, which are great on early downs when you're trying to stay sound. But if you're not getting any pressure, then you're not going to hold up on the back end if you're just running some vanilla coverage. And they're giving up like a lot of open space on the back end. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see if it changes, when they get Carter back.
Yeah. All right, well, let's flip it over to the offensive side. Brett Eclipse here asked me if I can talk about the all curls play call first, because he saw my tweet about it. Oh my gosh. Well, it was like 3rd and 8 or whatever it was, and the Eagles run all curls. Just throw that play in the garbage. I was hoping the Kellen Moore special left town with Kellen Moore, but apparently that one lingers. But so yeah, I obviously hated that one. But let's throw it back to the first part of the game. I thought early in the game, I really liked the mix of plays we were getting from the offense. So I think it's clear that they had a more of a fullback package built out, because you had Kylan Granson taking snaps at fullback. You went into some 13 personnel, but I liked that there were some under center plays. That motion toss the opposite way to Saquon was an awesome play design. They ran an under center play action bootleg. So I liked that they weren't just getting under center to run a play action max protect shot or to run the ball. There was a little bit of variation off of it. Obviously, we can't see a ton with like route concepts and designs on broadcast, but the Eagles offense was humming. And I mean, it was perfect. At one point, Hurts was like 9 of 11, and it was a Saquon drop and a throwaway were the 2 incompletions. He had a couple scrambles for first downs on plays that would have been dead, which is something that I'll be interested to look back at, because a few of those they showed the back view of one of them and there was no separation from anybody. And so that leads you to questions about, like, is AJ really healthy? What's going on with the receivers? But I liked what I saw early in the game before injuries started to mount and you had the weather delay. And so what were your thoughts from pre-weather delay about the play calling and sequencing from the Eagles?
Football is back, and every touchdown brings you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Your season starts now. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code PINPULL. That's code PINPULL. To get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first bet of $5 or more, plus over $200 off of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resorts, Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bet expires 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto-renews until canceled. Digital game and commercial users excluded. Restrictions may apply. Additional NFL Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket/terms. Limited time offer.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original. Which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Talk about stepping up! Bang! It's time to level up your game. Introducing the all-new ESPN app. All of ESPN, all in one place. Your home for the most live sports and the best championship moments.
The electricity is palpable.
Step up your game with no annual contract required. It's the ultimate fan experience. Level up for more on the ESPN app or at stream.espn.com. Sign up now.
Claptrap here. 2 big things are coming this fall. Borderlands 4 and Spotify Wrapped. So stop listening to that one playlist that reminds you of your ex who only made you cry. Talking about you, Veronica. And pre-order Borderlands 4, coming out September 12th.
Rated mature.
I liked some of what they did. So you mentioned that pistol play with the motion. I thought that was really nice design. The under center play action where it looked like a flood concept off to the right, that looked good. One of my favorite things they did was they hurried up into that swing screen to Shipley.
Yes.
And I thought that was really nice because you're going to get the defense to play some vanilla coverage, and it's pretty much an automatic completion. And after that, it's just like, can you get those one-on-one blocks on the outside? And they got some nice blocks, even though it was Jahan and Devontae, which is a criticism we've been saying, like, why are they using these tiny guys to block for screens? But on those plays, it worked. I really enjoyed those. So I know you only asked about before the delay, so those were my overall comments. The pass game before the delay, I thought, and it's going to be something we really need to watch the film, it looked like the Cowboys were dropping a lot of players and they weren't really finding early reads. So then it kind of just became like Jalen running. So until I see what those route combinations are, I don't really know, but it's a little bit discouraging because it's something I've been harping on all off season, which is Eagles pass game struggles against zone coverage. And then they come out and they ran 0 man coverage the first half, and the pass game was not functioning that well. So that is something that I'm concerned about.
Yeah. The one thing that I did think potentially bodes well for the season is that 3rd and 3 play or 3rd and 4 play, whatever it was, when Jalen Hurts hit Jahan Dotson on that big post route. Jalen doesn't throw that ball to Jahan Dotson last year. Probably not on 1st or 2nd down, but definitely not on 3rd down. And so the fact that they, A, not only called that, they were comfortable calling that, but B, Hurts was comfortable throwing it. And it was decently covered, and then put it on the money, and Jahan Dotson pays it off with the 51-yard reception to move the chains. I think that bodes well for the trust factor between Jalen and Jahan Dotson, and hopefully those guys will be on the same page and there will be more of a third threat to the receiving game this year. But also it does make me wonder about A.J. Brown. Like, was he really healthy? He gets 1 target in the game. They never tried to attack the downfield other than that play. I will look up the stats while you talk about something for a minute and see. But I think, to my knowledge, that was the only, it's the only pass that went more than 10 air yards on the day for Hurts. Every other attempted pass was under 10 air yards. And so they weren't trying to push the ball downfield, which is a staple with A.J. Brown. And it did make me wonder a little bit about his health. And so hopefully he's fine, and hopefully it's just an aberration. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not convinced that they're better with him as a pure decoy, if that is the case. Like, I probably would have just not played him. So we'll see. It did look like this to me, where he would come off the line with a lot of juice, and then kind of the route would just completely fizzle, which that would indicate like there's some health concerns there. They were repeatedly lining him up like tight to the formation, and everyone knows Hurts and AJ cook on the outside because you can't. It's hard to help. Like, where were the 15-yard comebacks? Where were the speed outs? Like, they are nowhere to be found until like the last drive. They ran that one speed out, and even that one, he kind of like got wrapped up pretty much easier than he normally would, where he would pivot back inside and usually break that tackle. So I do think there's probably still concerns. I think a hamstring, but once we watch the film, I think it'll become clear if that is actually the case. I thought the play calling got really tight down the stretch. Like, running underneath routes, hitches, and all this stuff. Like, they needed to open it up. I think they got really tight. And, like, they bill Sirianni as this aggressive guy. Well, they're not going for it on that 4th and 5 from midfield. Like, what did you think about that?
I was going to ask you, I would have gone for it. So, I mean, at 4th and 5 at midfield, 7 minutes left, you can go in the game. And if you don't, at least you're giving them the ball. It's not an easy touchdown, but they have to score a touchdown. A field goal doesn't do anything for them. But the field is shorter, so Dak's not going to be able to take 7 minutes off the clock and just win the game. Like, you're either going to pick up the first down and go ice the game, or at least get a field goal to go up by a touchdown, or you don't. And if you don't, you're at least going to get the ball back. They can't run off 7 minutes from midfield. So I would have gone for that one. Obviously, they decide to punt, and the defense pays it off with getting the ball right back for them, but I would have gone for that one. What about you?
I just had an epiphany, which is, if A.J. Brown was healthy, they would have thrown a slant to him on that play. And they get up there, and it looked like if they cut over to Sirianni, and it looked like right away he knew what he was going to do, which is, we're going to take this delay, and then we're going to punt it. So really that tells you, because if you look at the stats there, I think it's like 51-49. So that's a coin flip. And so if you think your offense has a better chance to succeed than your defense, you go for it. At that point in time, he didn't think that. So what's the reason for that? To me, it's pointing more at, like, he doesn't think that they can throw for 6 yards. And also, there's a little bit of, like, let's put the burden back on the defense. Because I think he did that last year. Like, I will say, I think there were times where Sirianni is like, let's just throw it back on the defense, because throughout the regular season, they carried the team.
Yeah, there was always some inconsistencies in his game management. Like, sometimes he would be more aggressive than I thought he should be, and sometimes less aggressive. And I think that one was in the toss-up category. Like, I don't think it was a bad decision to punt. It's probably not what I would have done, but I think there was also another play where they went into empty, if I remember correctly, and they were 4-by-1 with AJ as the isolated guy trying to run a slant, and Hurts opens to him, and he got pressed, and Hurts had to bounce to the other side. And when's the last time you saw A.J. Brown lose a press interaction off the line of scrimmage? Like, that's the whole thing. I said it constantly in pass game reviews last year, is you can't cover him one-on-one on a slant route. And so, we'll see. I will say, though, he did have a nice block on Saquon's touchdown, as did Devontae Smith. So despite both of their relative lack of involvement in the game through the air, it was good to see them contributing downfield in those situations. But I just thought the offense got too conservative after they got the ball back. I mean, you're trying to run the ball into stacked boxes behind Brett Toth and an injured Jordan Mailata, and it just wasn't working. And I was so glad when they get the ball that last time and they threw a pass on second down. It's like, thank you. Like, just throw a pass. And then, the play that seals the game, and the announcers called it out as well, but go empty. We're not calling a run play, but we're not calling a run play. Like, we're going to go run these routes, but if you see an opening to run, take it. And he does, and he gets the first down and he seals the game. It's like, to me, that's what you want to do, especially, your offensive line's not clicking. The left side of the offensive line was flat out bad in the second half, and there's injury things going into that, even before Dickerson comes off the field. So stop trying to play power football with 12 or 13 personnel and spread the field. And I did think that Jalen looked really good as a runner in this game. I thought he looked quicker than he did last year. And maybe that's just me not having watched him in 6 months and it being wishful thinking. But I did think that he looked quicker, looked more explosive. And most importantly, he ran the ball quite a bit in this game, and he didn't take very many hits doing it. He ended up with 14 carries, which a few of those are tush pushes, but I really only recall him getting hit like twice as a runner. I know his first 6 rushes, he never took a hit, and he rushed for 2 touchdowns. So it was nice to see him on the move and making stuff work for the offense.
If someone from the Eagles is listening, just take your headphones off for a minute here, because I thought the second half run game was atrocious. You mentioned it. Inside runs into 9-man boxes. And they have Kylan Granson and Grant Calcaterra out there. Like, they has no chances of working. And you mentioned even Brett Toth in there. That made no sense. There was no room to operate. And why would they not spread out the field? Because the Cowboys were matching that with 6-man boxes almost every time. and then you actually give Saquon room to operate. They ran crunch into a 9-man box. It's a joke. It really pissed me off. Like, they were not creating any space, just vanilla inside runs. No bells and whistles, no nothing. Why were they doing that? I have no idea. Because when they spread things out, they opened up the pass game a little bit with the deep shot in the first half, the swing screen. Everything was clicking. And then all of a sudden, they tightened up, and they're running Hank, and they're running inside zone over and over again into heavy boxes when they're bringing all of the guys into the box by their own volition. They're running condensed formations with 13 personnel. I just don't understand. Why did they do that?
Yeah, I agree. And so as to the Kevin Patullo question, we're just going to have to wait and see, because there's too many weird things about this game for me to really have a good handle. It felt like, I mean, obviously how successful the offense was dramatically changed, but it just felt like it was an entirely different offense after that weather delay. So, you know, it's really hard to reconcile that other than just to say it was a weird game. Let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks. What else? Anything else you want to mention on the offense before we get into player of the game and 3-word reactions?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like they were like, let's not make a turnover kind of deal, which is something they did last year over and over again, which is when they know they're better than the other team by a considerable margin, they tended to play tight. We saw it against the Panthers. We saw it against the Jaguars. There's probably another game in there that I'm forgetting, where they are not opening it up because they're just trying to reduce variance as much as possible. And I don't agree with it necessarily. Like, I think it is a fine line of like getting too crazy like they did in, I think, what was it, 2023 against Seahawks, and they blow the game, versus 2024 against some of those teams I mentioned where they clammed up and they let the other team storm back into the game. So that's what it looked like to me. I understand why you would do that, but I think it's too cautious, and it just makes you too easy to defend. And then all it takes is one bad play towards the end, and you're like, oh, crap. So.
Yeah. I had a comment here from Brett Eclipse talking about your last show, and you mentioned that Jalen doesn't pump fake when he breaks pocket and scramble drills, and said he thought he saw him do that on a couple of the runs. So I didn't notice that, but that's something I'll have to go back and watch for.
He had that play. I forget what the down and distance was, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 3. Maybe it was 3rd and 3 to Barkley, where he made the one-handed catch and then stiff-armed the guy.
Yeah.
He made a great throw there because he was off his back foot. He had the ball up here and he just kind of did this. That's not something you would typically see from him. Like, that was a very strange, like, kind of arm angle that he had to toss that from to create space. So that looked good. That looked encouraging. Not enough evidence about, like, if there's scramble drill improvements yet. Remember early in the game, he had that really nice cutback in space against that linebacker. That looked different than it did in the regular season last year. That looked more like what he was doing in the Super Bowl. I think the governor was taken off a little bit. Maybe he's healthier. I don't know. They really needed it because I bet you what will happen is people say, man, the offense was cooking in the first half and then they fizzled out. But it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. Like, let's be honest. Like, he was kind of just running over and over again for first downs. They get the one deep shot, which it was like the guy was directly on him. That had to be a perfect throw for that to work, which it was an unbelievable throw. So that's not something that is sustainable in my mind. They're going to need to go back to the drawing board. And I think what they really need to do is spread the offense out, and they got to get these teams to respect the vertical game more. What do you think?
Exactly. Spread it out. Being condensed works if you're going to run a lot of under center play action, and you're going to do motion, and you're going to throw over the middle of the field, and that's just not what the Eagles do.
And why did they stop under center? Like, it was good in the beginning, and then am I wrong to say that completely went away in the second half?
Yeah, they did. I don't recall them being under center a lot in the second half, but other than the tush push. So, all right, let's get into player of the games, and then we'll do our 3-word reaction. So you guys have just a couple minutes. You guys that are watching live, head over to @EaglesPinPoll on Twitter and drop your 3-word reactions. We'll read some of our favorites here in just a minute. But Eric, give me your player of the game from this one.
Zach Bond. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. And yes, the defense was underwhelming overall, but he was just absolutely all over the field, commanding the defense. And like we said earlier, he can't do it all. You really miss Carter. You could maybe I'm not going to steal your potential answer, but I'll just stick with Zach Bond because I'm pretty confident when I put on the film, it's going to look amazing.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I'll go with Jalen Hurts. Throws for not a high yardage total, but 19 of 23 passing, rushes for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he extended a lot of plays that just should have been drive killers. And I mean, even though they end up punting, you have that sequence where 2nd and 3rd down, the Cowboys send corner blitzers untouched, which we got to fix that. We can't be having guys coming untouched 2 plays in a row. But he makes the guy miss both times and is able to extend plays. And I thought he negated some poor offensive line play tonight. You know, people talk a lot about how he's the benefit of great offensive line play. Tonight, he negated some poor offensive line play. And I don't expect that to be a season-long thing. Hopefully, Landon Dickerson can get healthy, but I'll give him my player of the game shout out.
Yeah, and I remember early in the game, it looked like he had forever to throw and really clean pockets and everything was clicking. And they still were not opening up the pass game that much, even in that scenario. And then it just really stands out when it's juxtaposed versus Dak, and he's just going downfield almost every single play.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, after that, it you got the injuries with Mailata and Dickerson. Then there was the corner blitzes you're talking about. I watched that back. What happened is Barkley was going to flare to the flat. He saw the corner at the last second and he peeled back to try to block him. Lane saw it and he's like, okay, I got to get this threat. So Lane launched over. Actually, it was an unbelievable athleticism play by Lane Johnson to come over and block the corner. But then he just left Marshawn Kneeland scotch-free to come up and hit Hurts. That was just an unfortunate assignment there. But yeah, I wrote down that they didn't seem to have any answers for the blitz. You would have thought that they would know to be hot because in the first half, 0-man coverage, 0 blitzes, and it stunk. And then they started blitzing and it worked every single time. So then the Eagles have to go to the sideline and be like, okay, in a crucial situation, they're definitely going to blitz because that's the only ace they have up their sleeve. And Eberflus, what a sissy he is that when the game was on the line, they didn't blitz and they let Hurts scramble for that first down. That is just pathetic. But yeah.
Which also, get into empty. It makes it a whole lot harder to hide where a blitz is coming from. But yeah, Hurts was blitzed, according to PFS charting, was blitzed 5 times, sacked once, and completed 2 passes for 11 yards.
And there was a couple pressures on the other play. And I love what you brought up about empty. And I'd love to see the stats on this. From what I can remember, at least in the last several years, Hurts absolutely cooks when they run empty. It simplifies the reads. It gives him a lot more space if he needs to create time, whether it's just create time in the pocket or actually scramble. To me, that should be something that they go to rather than bringing a bunch of tight ends on the field, bringing 9 men into the box and then running inside zone. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree. It simplifies, it forces the defense to declare coverage structure, where the pressure's coming from, all before the snap. And it just eliminates a lot of things you have to do post-snap. But unless you're willing to use your quarterback as a runner, which the Eagles clearly are, it does take away the threat of the run game a little bit. So
I liked when they ran empty a few times, they got Barkley on some easy passes out to the sideline. I like that. I bet what teams will start doing is pressing him up when he's out wide. And I wonder to what extent can they like try to run him deep. So that'll be something I'm monitoring.
Yeah. So, all right, let's throw it over now to our 3 words. All right, our Eagles were game in 3 words or less. Each and every week at the end of the game, the Eagles Pinpool Twitter account will post a 3-word reactions. So head over there, drop your 3-word reactions, and then come over here to watch the post-game show, and we will read some of our favorites on the show. So I'll scroll through here. We've got a Whatever It Takes from Christina. We have a It's September Football from Mr. Downbat. If there was ever a September football game, it was this one. Max dropped a Meme is back, and the deal with the eagle head where at the beginning it says, oh boy, am I excited to watch my favorite team play. And then the majority of it is, I'm going to kill myself. And then at the very end, oh nice, we won. Mel O says, draft a CB. Seth dropped a better than losing. Jack gave us a Jalen just wins. Winston chiming in with thank you, CD. Dan gave us an Adori go away. And Jordan says, throw to AJ. So just a few of our 3-word reactions there. Got a good amount of comments this week. Eric, what is your 3-word reaction?
Bennett, get ready. Because they need another plan out there. To me, it just stuck out like a sore thumb. I mean, this is not rocket science here. Like, it was very obvious that this was the undoing for their defense. Everything could kind of fix itself if they just got better play on the outside there and get Carter back. So, like, I'm not overly concerned long term. Like you mentioned, we're pretty encouraged about what we saw from the rookies, where that's really where you may be concerned. The edge rushers, like, and I should just mention this now. There's a rule where if you're a vested veteran, like Zadarius Smith is, if you're on a team on the week 1, your salary is guaranteed for the season. But if you come after week 1, they can cut you later and they only have to pay like 35% or 2 weeks of salary, whatever's greater. So the Eagles get the first shot if they want. That's the reason why he's not on a roster yet. And so there's been some beat reporters and content creators who have kind of mentioned that the Eagles are going to be signing an edge rusher here. And I wonder if it's Smith. And if it is, I'm going to brag on Twitter because that would be a great call.
Yes, it would be. I would love to see Zadarius Smith come into the fold here. But my 3-word reaction, because this has been a drum that I have banged for a long time, is a screen worked, Mark, but it wasn't actually just one. It was 2. We got the nice little screen to Will Shipley. I looked away for a second on the Devontae Smith screen because I noticed he was lined up out wide, and I looked away for a second, and when I came back, he had the ball on a screen. I was like, did they just run a tunnel screen? And I skipped it back, and they motioned him inside. And then, so it was like, it's not technically a tunnel screen, but it was close, and I was going to shout you out. So 2 screens in one game that worked, which I think might be more than they had the entirety of last season put together. So that was kind of nice as well. So
yeah, and before that, like, people are mentioning this, that Dallas was kind of started to tee off, and they're bringing a bunch of guys in the box, and they're playing really aggressively. And then they immediately like went to the screen. That was nice to see. Like, that shows some cognizance from Patullo that he's like, okay, we got to be able to counter what Dallas is doing. But then I was discouraged at the end when they're bringing everyone in the box and just running it into a clogged A gap. So they're going to have plenty of opportunities to go back and fix some of these mistakes. And I'll probably give them like a 4 or 5 week runway before I start to really harshly criticize some of this stuff.
Yeah, this 3-word reaction here in the YouTube comments is great. Bring back Bradbury.
So apparently Isaiah Rodgers was liking tweets referring to why did Howie let this guy go, blah, 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 during the game. So that tells me, like, if he was offered to come back, he probably would have came back. And
Yeah.
this is for people who have been following the channel. I'm sure, and I know that you've talked about this as well. Like, we both would have loved to have him back. And at $5.5 million, he's like a legit CB2, like potentially an upper echelon CB2. That is well worth it. My guess is there's something outside of football that they don't like about him. Maybe it's like he's not as diligent in film study, or he does stuff late night, or I don't know. I have literally no clue. But like $5.5 million for what he's able to do on the football field, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I retweeted one of my tweets during the game from back in March when I said my priority one in free agency would be getting Isaiah Rodgers back in the building to compete with Keely Ringo. I thought when they let Slay go, it was so they could bring Rodgers back to be into that role, and was really surprised when A, they didn't, and B, he signed for what he signed for in Minnesota. But that's all water under the bridge at this point. Hopefully the Eagles can figure it out. Regardless, they're in a better place to try to figure things out at 1-0 than the Dallas Cowboys with their tails between their legs, headed home on the plane back to Jerry's World with an 0-1 record. So all in all, not too bad of a start to the season. The Eagles will get a preview of their week 2 opponent tomorrow night when they watch the Chiefs take on the Chargers, and get a couple extra days rest headed into that week 2 matchup at Arrowhead. We'll be here breaking down all of this stuff throughout the week. We'll be live with a post-game show next week. Normally we'll have a third on these post-game shows, but we had some issues with the delay tonight that messed some things up. But thank you guys all for joining us live here. Eric, any final thoughts that you want to fire off before we get out of here?
No, I'll be posting a lot of film over the next few days with some of my analysis, and then doing a Chiefs preview. A lot of people were enjoying my matchup preview for this game, which everything kind of went out the window.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of that ended up being relevant, but I'll be back at it again next week for the Chiefs. And as the season goes on, everything, it'll become a lot more relevant once these teams knock off the rust and they show their identity for who they are this year. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/ontheshane page. You'll get Eric's preview every week, his written preview. You will get my all 22 pass game review. Johnny will be doing a film preview. Eric and I are going to be rotating through a player spotlight, so I'll have a poll up for that later. So come check us out, patreon.com/ontheshane page. All the support there helps us continue to do all of this stuff as well. So if you enjoy our content, please consider heading over there to at least check it out. We'll be dropping some stuff for free members too, so you can get a sampling of what our content is like. And of course, the Eagles Pin Pull Podcast Network will be here with a lot of shows this week, breaking down all the games. Johnny and I will be doing our film breakdown. Eric will have his show. There'll be a lot of other shows in between. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys next time. Go Birds.